has to be bad.
With regards to other professions in Jersey, the Jersey legal profession is wholly controlled within the island. It's now educating itself. They've got a training scheme. Other professions all train outside the island, and they're accountable outside the island, but there doesn't in fact seem to be much accountability for the other professions. We do occasionally hear doctors who get reprimanded for various things, but generally speaking they're not active politically, and we don't hear a great deal of intervention. They're not expressing political views as groups, and not reprimanded, or accountants don't seem to be accountable to me. How would you comment on that?
Yes, well again this is very interesting and a very important issue, because we're back to this culture which is very inward looking, because it's controlled politically in this closed shop culture. And I'm aware of certain individuals, very good from a professional point of view, but the thing is they are very concerned professionally, and they look to those who are politically in control. And so they're in a very, very sensitive position because of this closed culture that links up to the Crown officers. And by the very fact Jersey is a Crown dependency, subject to the authority of these unaccountable, non-transparent Crown officers, I think it's important now for any politician, all politicians, whether they're senators or prospective senators, deputies, connétables, to question in very great depth. And I really wonder if the BBC is sufficiently independent, and is it prepared to do its job? Because certainly from what I've heard, I think there's a total lack of probity by the BBC. And many people, certainly in the UK, at one time the BBC had an excellent reputation for independence and accountability. Now, sadly, due to the change of the system of governance, whereby there's a new system of trust, BBC Trust, under the BBC as a director of governance, who is answerable to the Secretary of State for the Department of Culture, Media and Sport, who's accountable then to the Prime Minister. So effectively, sadly, the system in the UK has changed dramatically and become more autocratic.
The guys, you say you started off, you were knocking on doors and speaking to the ordinary guy who's going to be up to have a vote.
Yeah.
With this background, as you say, how would the ordinary guy find leadership and get the knowledge that is necessary to make the decisions that need to be made? When he puts his simple cross on the paper, he has to have analysed, in theory, so many issues. How could an ordinary guy do that in this island?
Well, I think this is why it's very important to question the candidates, and there's certain major issues that have taken place which I think are apparent to most of the electorate, most of the people I've spoken to, they're all very intelligent people, but it's very important for the candidates just to remind them about what's been going on in Jersey. And I think most people are very well aware what was going on at Helier Garin. Who was the governor of Helier Garin, and were there any victims? Is it the case there were 160 victims of child abuse who all swore affidavits, sworn statements, verifying the truth of what happened, that they were abused, boys and girls, now adult men and women? And what happened there? Who was the governor? And is it not the case that one of the Crown officers, who was in an extremely senior position in the system of governance, totally compromised, is it not the case that one of the candidates is putting themselves forward to be elected as a senator? Is that not the case? And the other situation is, under the system of governance, is it not the case that the Attorney General is the decision maker as regards prosecutions, and should there not be an issue when there are egregious conflicts of interest that there should be some form of independence? And is it right that somebody that's been so close to issues of abuse, and certain innocent people who have been hounded, yes, hounded, who were Democratic candidates and they had more votes than any other candidate as a senator, And what happened to them? Yes, they were demonised, they were isolated, and attempts were made to criminalise them. Is that not the case?
Well, they were indeed criminalised, and one particular person, of course, is standing again in this senatorial election, and will be challenging, obviously very directly, the ex-bailiff, who was obviously very much involved in the proceedings over the many years to which you allude. Do you think it's significant that someone like Stuart Sivray is standing in this election?
Well, I think yes, it is. It is crucially important that he does stand, because it's an opportunity for the public to act as a thermometer, to test the water. What's the temperature of the water? And through that means, through that mechanism, it's possible to see exactly what is the thinking of the good public, who are well aware what's been going on in Jersey.
Do you think they are well aware? Do you think they are sufficiently well informed? Because obviously they've got to get their information from somewhere.
I believe that, but having said that, I am also aware that the media in Jersey, unfortunately, is extremely skewed, whether it's by means of the television or by means of the newspaper or the radio. So the system of media communication is compromised in Jersey. So I appreciate, perhaps, unfortunately, the communication might not be as good as it should be. But I think one thing most people will be aware of, how the Chief of Police, who was an excellent policeman, unfortunately, he was obliged to stand aside. The Deputy Chief of Police, who was also an excellent police officer, he was also obliged to stand aside. And then as regards what happened to Senator Stuart Sivray, I thought that was absolutely, words fail me, that was totally out of order. And I do think it's now time for the public to appreciate now is the time to make their decision, time for a change.
But how can we affect change when everyone is so depoliticised in a sense? 75% don't vote. I mean, that goes right to the legitimacy of government, but how on earth, if you want to affect change, what is the agency of change?
Well, I think the agency of change, part of that has to come from the candidates themselves, and hopefully through this little video blog, this is also an opportunity for people to consolidate together, to realise that because they are so frustrated with the whole rotten system, because now is this opportunity where, fortunately, deputies, senators and connétables are now being elected all at the same time. It's crucial to ask, to probe in very great depth about what these candidates are prepared to do, because this is the only opportunity. Once the candidate is returned, it's almost too late. And I have been very aware of various candidates who've got vested interests who should never be standing for election. And I can understand why so many people I've spoken to, they give the same response. What's the point? But then, having spoken to them for a few minutes, and having had the opportunity of, decent, honourable people who allow you into their homes, and you speak to them about the issues, and then they realise the depth, and then automatically there's massive transformation. They say, yes, I will support the candidate that you support, because I realise how sick this society has become.
You live a lot of the time outside of Jersey. Are you aware of, obviously reputational issues are always raised, the good reputation of Jersey, whether it's seawater or finance or whatever it might be. What do you hear when you're out of Jersey? What the people you speak to, when you say Jersey, what do they say?
Well, it's interesting because I have linkages with various sovereign jurisdictions. Some time ago, quite often I involved in matters to do with Parliament. There's a House of Lords, House of Commons, and also I advise various heads of state in other countries. And what is interesting is surprisingly, many people in other jurisdictions seem to know rather more what's happening in Jersey to what many Jersey people are aware of. And certainly what happened at Helier Garin, it was sickening. And that has left a massive stain on Jersey's reputation. And there are ways of dealing with that, but the present way that the establishment is dealing with things is most certainly not the right way.
More openness, more things to be revealed?
Precisely. There has to be more consultation, more openness, more accountability, more transparency, more honesty, more integrity. But there must be total consultation.
Okay, thank you much indeed. We'll leave it there.
Thank you.